go to Dallas, where we've got a purple out, gentlemen. And Garrett, I mean, tip of the cap to you. You picked Kansas State to go to Dallas from the very beginning. Absolutely none of us had TCU even having a chance at playing in Jerry World, and yet the number 3 Horned Frogs will take on the 10th ranked Kansas State Wildcats. TCU 2.5 point favorites in another rematch Saturday morning, 11 a.m. ABC. TCU got the best of Kansas State also at home earlier this year. 38-28 was the final score there, but it was Kansas State that raced out to a 28-10 lead early on in that game. I mean, they looked like they had this bull by the horns. They were going to slay the dragon in the Cinderella run for TCU. And then their offense just dried up. They had some turnovers, they had injuries, and Kansas State didn't find the end zone again. And TCU roars all the way back to win this. Frogs are coming off of a blowout against Iowa State. Trey, I know you were hoping that Iowa State would show some sort of courage, some sort of fight there in the rain in Fort Worth last week. It didn't happen. They didn't show up.
I
And
was just looking at the data, man. I don't know what to tell you. The data said
no,
that
I
Iowa
know.
State plus 10 was a lock.
I know, but you know what? That was the worst loss for Iowa State in what 4 years since they also got blown out by TCU in Fort Worth. Just kind of crazy how the Horned Frogs apparently have Matt Campbell's number. But all that to say, to me, it feels like TCU's offense is humming. And eh, while I do think it's really tough to beat teams 2 times in a row, TCU just every doubt I've thrown their way, every question mark, every well they're good but they can't do this, and it's their time is up, their luck has run out. They've won. And yeah, have they gotten kind of lucky in a couple of places looking at that game in Baylor? Sure. Absolutely, but they found a way. And for me, I just feel like TCU has found something special. When you have that team of destiny vibes, there's always a team of destiny, right? Every single year there's one team of destiny. I think it's TCU over USC. Give me the Horned Frogs in Dallas this week, minus the 2.5.
Yeah, and I think of all the top contenders, TCU probably feels the most slighted. Obviously, USC knows they have to win to be in. TCU is kind of on that bubble. I know there's been a lot of debate on Twitter this week over will they get in if a loss? Will they be out if they lose? I don't necessarily want to get into that right here because, we're talking about the game itself, but personally, I think TCU, that narrative's not really going to matter. They're not going to be worried about, oh, can we get in if we lose? They want to just go out and take it because they felt disrespected. That fan base has felt disrespected. The team has felt disrespected by the college football media and universe at large all season long. So I'm all in on the Frogs. I think they take care of business. They proved the doubters wrong. They're going to continue to do so. TCU minus 2.5. And I think you could see, I don't know. This was kind of the game that they showed they belonged uh, earlier in the season. It was a huge comeback, like you said, and this is the one that made the fan base start to believing. I think they double up on Kansas State. Kansas State's had a great season, and they could certainly. It'll be interesting to see how they match up with Will Howard at quarterback instead
Sure.
of Adrian Martinez. I think that's the X factor to me, but I still think TCU is good enough to get it done.
Yeah, and we talked about that game being in Fort Worth. This is still a Tarrant County home game, basically, for TCU. They get to take a quick shot down I-30, exit at 157, and then just turn straight into the stadium. I mean, this is a easy game to get to for a lot of their fans. I think about all their fans show up to it, and as I said on the podcast a couple weeks ago, still don't think it's going to be that many because it's a relatively small school. So I think it will get packed out. I think a lot of T-shirt fans. There's been a lot of energy around this game and around TCU the last several weeks. As someone who works in Fort Worth, lives in the Fort Worth suburbs, I really have been feeling that. There've been billboards up talking about the record and the number 3 ranking and everything like that. And so I think the energy around TCU is incredible right now. They have the best resume of any of the current top 4 teams. People don't want to talk about that. I don't necessarily think they're the best team in the country just looking at them, but the numbers would disagree with you. And I know that they haven't necessarily been convincing all year, right? Like what Trey was talking about, they were winning a lot of nail biters, a lot of close ones. They still have a perfect record, right? At the end of the day, they're still 12-0. They're still looking to complete that perfect season. And of course, like you said, Mitch, my darling Wildcats, they're here. They made it. And I knew they would make it. I had confidence in them.
Never a
you know
doubt.
Never a
Never a
doubt.
doubt.
Not even after early season. Never mind. But no, like they've been an incredible team to watch. Adrian Martinez has been so good for them. You flip the switch with Will Howard, and he just brings that offense into a different place, right? And that was actually where he got his start, was at TCU, right? So that's kind of where he starts coming in for Adrian Martinez. He played the very beginning of that game. I think completed maybe a couple passes and gets injured, and then all of a sudden it's the Will Howard show, right? He's out there wheeling and dealing. I think I have the numbers here. He passed for 225 coming off the bench, not prepared for it, had a 182 rating to end that game. So he played really, really well in relief. Obviously not well enough to get the dub at TCU, but he played really well. Anytime you've got Deuce Vaughn, you can't count this team out either. You know that he's one of the best players in the country. I think he's going to prove that. He's going to have a huge showing. I'm pumped for the Purple Out personally. I just kind of think the TCU, they're going to be riding high. They got a friendly environment, way too much on the line. They've got a lot to prove as well. I think a lot of people don't think that they still belong, even though they do. K-State, I think they're going to have a lot of fun in the Sugar Bowl. I picked them to be the runners up in this game at the preseason, and I'm going to stick with my prediction. They're going to runner up the conference. TCU is going to finish that perfect season. TCU -2.5. This is a fairly easy one for me to pick.
Gracious, yep.